Puts it on the deck down to 4 seconds. Hunter in the corner. Ivey for the win. He got it! He got it! Ivey with some major onions.
About the only thing better than a game-winning shot is a game-winning shot with Bill Raftery on the call. Jaden Ivey providing the drama in West Lafayette yesterday. First game-winning field goal for Purdue in the final second in the last 20 years, 81-78 over Ohio State. And on the heels of that drama, Purdue coach Matt Painter joining us for our big interview. Coach, let's start with this. How is your mental state after that one?
Yeah, we all need a little counseling after that one. But Ohio State's a great team, obviously well coached. They got two real dynamic players that are tough covers, and obviously they played really well down the stretch, and we're very fortunate that we were able to get that win.
Coach, take me through that final play, because I gathered it was not exactly how you drew it up.
Yeah, they were going man and then zone and switching it up, so we wanted to run something pretty simple, so no matter what they were in, we could run the same thing. And we were running something simple, and we were going to Zach Edey, and we didn't line up correctly, and we didn't run it correctly, so we were going to Sasha to get the ball inside, and then we were going to play off of that, and then we had two people go to the same spot. And the guy who obviously Jade makes a huge shot, but the guy that deserves a lot of credit, because in that situation, Eric Hunter, if he just breaks it down and then gets a quick one and shoots it, now, make or miss, they got an opportunity to go the other end because of time. And he kept his composure. I know he was dribbling around a little bit, but what's a guy supposed to do, when something of that nature happens? J.I. kind of just found the basketball and made a huge shot right there. But Eric Hunter, J.I. made a huge play and a huge shot, but Eric Hunter deserves a lot of credit for keeping his composure.
Both those guys, as you said, to be commended on the play. Obviously, Ivey's going to get all of the attention from
right.
those on the outside. I remember you saying to me last year, we were talking a little bit about Jaden as a freshman. You were saying, it's kind of like coaching a video game. That you press A and it goes up, and that he's such a crazy good athlete, but still kind of trying to figure it out, get under control. He clearly has done that this year. He's turned into one of the best players in the country. But what's it like? What's the give and take of coaching a guy who's as supremely talented as he is, Matt?
Yeah, he's a young player. He's very talented. He works on his game. He really did a good job other night. He boxed some guys out in some ball screen action. He played on 2 feet. He attacked and made centers stop him. He made some nice passes and some nice reads. He's really come a long way in that area. We try to get him the ball as much as we can out in space, whether that's in transition or on some sets that we run, and just kind of work downhill. But he's done a good job of kind of incorporating his own threes, kind of some step backs when people go under and things of that nature. But just the reads and the progression of reads, he's done a much better job in that area. But he's a dynamic player. It's going to take more than one guy to stop him. And when they have to do that and load up 2 to 3 people, now getting the ball out of his hands with the skill and the size that we have, it's been really good for our team.
You mentioned Ohio State's a really good team, and so I want to preface this question by saying that. I mean, they've got an All-American, E.J. Liddell. They got a number of other guys who are probably in the hunt for all-league contention. That being said, 20-point lead, and they whittled it down and actually tied the game. And it's not the first time that you've seen big leads go away this year. So is there a common thread there? What are you seeing with those leads evaporating?
Yeah, no question. It has been something where our execution and our attention to detail has been better when we've been down or been in close games. Our guys have really locked in. We got down to Villanova. Our guys really locked in the second half and got more stops, executed better. But we were in a tough spot. We were down 11. Now it was kind of the game other night was very similar to our game in the Big Ten tournament. Ohio State has us down 20, and we come back and we force overtime. And I think it's just kind of we get leads in the first half, and then we start to do things that that we didn't do to get that lead. This wasn't the case in this game. Like, we played pretty well up until the very end, and they made some shots. We had defensive breakdowns. We missed free throws also. So that's been a little bit of a piece. I think that always gets in you a little bit from a morale standpoint. You do something positive, and you come away with nothing because you miss a front end or you miss 2 free throws, and that kind of takes a little bit out of you. But we've had some breakdowns, and we get away from some things defensively when we get those leads. I think that's human behavior. I think that happens a lot in college basketball. People always wonder. It happens in the NBA a lot. Big leads don't mean as much because the players are so good and they have so much time to come back. But you want to be able to take those leads and take it from 10 to 15, 15 to 20, and keep pushing it out so things of this nature won't happen. But we just got to work on it. It's just a learning lesson for us. We got to watch film and then be better if we can put ourselves in that position again.
Is there anything you can do coaching-wise when guys aren't making free throws, or are you just, when you draw attention to it, or you just exacerbating the problem?
Yeah, well, you just got to work on your form. You got to work and put them in game situations and practice competitive free throws. Put a lot of time into it. Watch yourself on film. For us, it's been guys that we go to. If it's other guys that maybe aren't our leading scorer, top 2-3 scorers, it's really been the guys that we go to a lot. So we just got to work on it because it's such a strength for us to be able to get people in foul trouble, to get into the bonus. But when you do, you got to make them pay.
You mentioned some of the defensive issues, too, at times. It's strange for me to see. I mean, you're such a good offensive team. You're literally the most efficient offensive team in the country. Do you think the identity of this program has been defense? It was defense when you played there for Gene Katie.
Right.
There's signs all over, defense lives here and whatnot.
Yeah.
And yet you haven't been quite at that level.
No.
Do you think that's just kind of natural because you're so good offensively that guys just think, well, we can get it back?
I think a little bit. I think when you get into non-conference, you think that's just the way it's going to be. We're undefeated non-conference. I just kept telling our guys, who are we when the ball doesn't go in? You got to be able to grind out victories. We've had some situations this year where we've been able to do that and grind those victories out. And then we've had some where we haven't been able to, and our shots aren't going down. Maybe our threes aren't going down, our free throws. And then you got to be better on the defensive end. So we've learned some hard lessons, but we still don't have that consistency. And that's what we got to, strive for. We got to strive for that consistency on the defensive end and then rewarding ourselves by rebounds. Another night against Iowa, we have a good game, but we miss free throws. We don't do a great job of boxing out. We still have some turnovers, even though they weren't against the press. And so I just told our guys, you got to be able to learn lessons while you're still winning. Sometimes when you win, players think everything's okay. But if you had a loss by 1 point, now you would magnify some of those deficiencies. And you still got to magnify those deficiencies when you win. And that's what we have to do. We have to keep making improvements while we're getting a couple wins here.
Well, let's magnify some of the positives. And I'm not sure he needs much magnification because he's enormous. But Zach Edey, explain to me, Matt, how a guy who is 7'4" and is that skilled had 3 scholarship offers. We're talking less than 1 out of every 100 teams in the country said this guy is worthy of a scholarship.
Well, he was a guy that, didn't play his freshman year in high school. His first year of playing was his sophomore year. He went to IMG. They did a great job with him. They did a great job developing him. He was on one of the lesser teams in his first year, and then the next year he was on the best team, but he wasn't the starter. And so he was with a lot of good people, but he kept getting better. IMG did a great job of helping him and developing him. And, when he comes here, he's a sponge. He's not a guy that's played forever, so whatever you give him, he really tries to go and work on it, and he listens to you. But, he's been a breath of fresh air. He's fun to coach, but, he's a guy you have to foul. That's just really what it comes down to. Just what are the officials going to call? If they go by, what they say, he gets fouled on almost every single play. And, when he gets deep position, he's tough to deal with. The place he's improved the most is his ball screen defense, moving his feet, but also his passing. He's really done a much better job passing the ball and taking his time.
Did you think he'd be this good this quickly?
I did not. Just because he hadn't played very much. I knew he had an upside. I knew he was going to be good. You just didn't know when he was going to be good. But he averaged 4 points his last year at IMG. So he played behind Mark Williams at Duke, and rightfully so. Mark Williams is a great player. The year before that, Baycott from North Carolina was their best, big there. So he constantly, every single day, he didn't have fool's gold. He was going against elite guys that are going to be in the NBA. So he was always getting better, and that's the way it's been here. He's been going against Travion Williams every single day in practice. The bigs in the Big Ten are great across the board. So, nothing's fool's gold. So everything that he's struggling with, now he's making those improvements. But then when he is having success, he's having it versus, quality players.
I thought Mason Gillis was unbelievable for you guys yesterday, particularly down the stretch. He was great on the boards. I love his story, Coach, just because, here's a guy who was hurt his senior year of high school. Then you redshirted him. I mean, he went nearly 1,000 days between playing meaningful games, and now he's back and contributing in a huge way to your team. For those who don't watch you a ton, give us a sense of what makes him and his story so special.
Well, his senior year, he had to make a decision. He got microfracture surgery. It was on top of a meniscus surgery before that. Obviously, he has it on the meniscus again, but it was something a little bit different. But it was something that was going to wipe him out for his senior year, so he had to make that decision, and that was tough. We run a lot of stuff, so when guys come in here, if that's overwhelming to you, it's going to put you in a little bit different box. You got to know what's going on at all time. So we've redshirted a lot of people, not just him, just to get a sense of knowing what's going on and having a feel and being able to learn the game in your first year. Last year he was really good for us, really competed, and he's just taken that to another level. He's got a better feel for what's going on now. He can make shots, he can make threes, he does a good job of getting the ball inside, but he plays hard. More than anything, he lays it on the line and he competes, and he plays really hard.
I know you have a lot of equity built up, and you do put it on the line, I know, with guys and say, hey, there's a strong chance you will redshirt, and are you comfortable with that before you commit? That being said, how has the portal and NIL, how have all of these things kind of changed the equation in what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, well, we don't really talk about it a lot in the recruiting piece of it. We want them to come in and compete and be able to play and be able to start right away. And so, that's what we really sell, but we also say, I don't want you to play 5 to 10 minutes your first year. And if you put yourself in that position and that's where you are, just try to be brutally honest with guys, because that's where you are at that time. It doesn't mean you can't grow into something later on that year, but if you don't, and you don't say something to these guys. I see these guys all over college basketball, not playing or playing 5 to 10 minutes their first year. And if it's not the difference in a win throughout the course of the year, why not help these guys grow and develop and get better? So we've had a lot of success with it. Obviously, we were one of the few schools, high major, that didn't take someone out of the portal. It doesn't mean that we won't, because everybody's in a different situation every year. They're really going to be in a different situation every single year. So just trying to do what's best for our team, but also trying to help the guys that have sacrificed, that have set out, and seeing them develop, with name, image, and likeness, and a lot of, differences. We've really tried to encourage it with our players. I think it needs to, be something for guys that are being smart and try to grow, what they're trying to do and make money off their name, image, and likeness, but also keep your focus on your academics, keep your focus on your team. And those are the most important things as you go, because, everyone's striving to have a better life through the opportunity of having a scholarship, but also they want to be professional basketball players, but you got to be able to live with two dreams. You got to live with that dream through your education and that dream through a basketball. So as long as you're doing these things and you're keeping your priorities straight, I think it's a positive.
Coach, this is such a good and talented team. How much pressure do you feel to make a deep tourney run with this group?
I don't know if the word's pressure, because I think when you get to that point, you got to make your hard work fun. And the NCAA tournament can be a crapshoot at times. You're getting on a neutral court. You're, no matter who you play, you're playing somebody good. Nobody slips on a banana peel and ends up in the NCAA tournament. You earn your way in there. And I think that gets taken off with the 5-12 games, the 4-13, and man, you should win. And it's a lot more similar than you think. You see it in some of those exempt events, when you get on neutral courts, and it's You know, it's something you got to be able to live with, and you got to be ready, and you got to have a focus to let your guys know, like, hey, this team is really good. And if you have the fortunate chance to win that game, the next team's going to be even better. And but no, we're excited about our season. We're excited about playing and just getting better. But that's where we got to be, man. We got to be detailed. We got to be on edge, but we got to have fun with things.
Last question for you. You have turned out some great basketball players in your day. You're also churning out some announcers. So I need you to evaluate Robbie Hummel and Raphael Davis as college basketball analysts.
There you go. Yeah, well, Robbie Hummel's like, you know, just keeps getting better. Like, you know, he puts a lot of time into it. You can see he does his homework. And I think anybody that's growing in their profession, you know, you keep working. Like, you know, from a coaching standpoint, you know, you don't know it all. You know, keep learning from your mistakes, keep getting better, keep learning from other people. It's so important. And he's done that in his broadcasting. You can see the time that he's putting in. And he's, you know, as you know, he's one of the best in the country. You know, Raphael's the rookie. And but he's been great. Like I really thought when guys first start, man, as you know how hard it is, I thought he would crash and burn a little bit, to be frank with you, and he's been fabulous. I listened to him. He's insightful. Yeah. He knows what's going on. He's doing his homework. I've only had to like text him a couple things that I think he needs to work on. But he's been very good. He's letting his personality come out.
Yep.
And I think sometimes in broadcasting, you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you're a dud and you're playing, you know, people just, and you're bland, like people aren't going to gravitate to you. Both those guys have great personalities, and they allow their personalities to come out, but they're knowledgeable too. You got to be able to speak to common folk when it comes to basketball. You just do. Don't speak to coaches. Don't speak to NBA players. You got to speak to the masses, and both those guys have done a great job with that.
Well, that blandness has hampered me my entire career, as you know, Matt, but somehow I've overcome it. All right, my friend, thanks so much. Great to talk to you. Big Ten standings, Illinois and Wisconsin tied at the top of the conference. Remember, those two teams meet on the Big Ten Network Wednesday night in Champaign. Michigan State, Purdue, Ohio State, all a game back in the loss column. The bottom of the league, Minnesota and Northwestern, both with just 2 wins despite playing a ton of close games. Nebraska, meanwhile, yet to win a conference game. And Trey, I know you want to focus on those three at the bottom, what they need to do to get going. Let's start with Minnesota. I said this earlier. I think I would still kind of stand by it. I might still suggest they've overachieved a little bit. That being said, there are a lot of games that were winnable. They didn't win. So what do they need to do here?
Well, they have an identity on the offensive end, as we mentioned earlier in the show. They spread you out. They play a pro-style offense. Ben Johnson's not going to run a lot of plays. He's just going to get the ball in his playmakers' hands. But on the defensive end, I don't think they have an identity yet. The last 2 games, 35 paint points per game, and then throughout conference, they're getting out-rebounded by 10 rebounds. So they have to figure out a way to not give up so many easy baskets and rebounds, because on the defensive end, they're giving up a lot of layups, and then on the offensive end, they're taking a lot of long contested twos, which is okay because they have talented players, but they have to force their opponents to take those same shots.
Is that just a function of them being undersized, or do you think there's more to it?
I think the guards can help rebound a little bit and just be a little bit more pesty on the defensive end. A lot of times, though, when you have scoring guards and guys who are really good on the offensive end, it's hard for them to do on the defensive end because they just don't have the energy to do it. But they have to try their best to be a little bit more gritty on the defensive end.
So, while I might suggest those two have, or that team has overachieved, I would suggest the next two have probably underachieved based on what was expected of them. Northwestern, I mentioned earlier, I mean, it's no great secret as to what they need to do. They've had the lead in the final 4 minutes of 5 of their 10 losses, including this game against Illinois, and yet can't close the deal. So we know what the problem is. How do you change it?
Yeah, I mean, there's 3 things when I think of this Northwestern team. I think a lot of times when you talk Northwestern, you talk about the shot selection of the guards, but I don't think that's been a big of an issue this year. I thought that was more of a last year's thing. But there's 3 things. The first thing is playing the same down the stretch. When you watch a team like Wisconsin, they run the same kind of sets. They run their motion. They run their swing offense the same way down the stretch. Northwestern, on the other hand, I don't feel like they run the same stuff. They don't get the same action. I love when they're in the 5-out with Pete Nance with the top of the key with the ball. I think they have to continue to do that down the stretch of the games and just play that way, you know, just like it would be in the first half. And the other thing is, in conference play, they've been not very good with giving up open threes. I know this game was a while ago, but when I watched that Ohio State game, they gave up 13 open threes in the first 10 minutes of the game. I mean, think about that. And then Ohio State made 7 of them. I mean, they should have probably made 10 or 11 because they were wide open threes. You know, E.J. Liddell hit 5 of them. Right. So you can't give up that many open threes. And it seems like they seem to do it in the most crucial times, right? And then the last thing is then just drawing fouls down the stretch. We talked about it with Wisconsin. Like when Wisconsin struggles to get baskets, or they're struggling to get points, Brad Davison and Johnny Davis know how to draw fouls. I think Boo Boo and Chase Audige, especially Chase Audige, who's been struggling a little bit from the floor, he needs to be able to create fouls, especially when teams are in the bonus. I think there's too many times through the course of the game where they had the team in the bonus, but they're still taking long contested threes. So just getting those easy baskets, seeing the ball go in the rim as a scorer.
Opponents averaging 8 more free throw attempts per game than Northwestern is in conference play. Amazingly, they have made 15 more field goals than their Big Ten opponents combined, and they're 2-8.
It's incredible.
That's amazing. Nebraska's lost its fair share of close games as well. They fell by 2 to Rutgers after leading virtually the entire way. That Ohio State game comes to mind as one that they had won. Frankly, they just needed to make a free throw there from Latman and missed a couple, and Ohio State got it into overtime. So there have been some close calls, not as many as Northwestern, but what do you make of what's going on with the Huskers?
Yeah, I don't think you can judge their season by wins and losses. You just want to see them compete on a nightly basis. And, you know, it was tough. But when I played at Northwestern, we had kind of a similar losing streak. And I think what people don't understand is one game can change the entirety of your program. And there was a moment we had lost a ton of games in a row. It was my junior year. You know, we were supposed to be better that year. And Coach Collins kind of got us all around and said, you know what, we're starting afresh right now. And so we lost the next 2 games, and then we beat a ranked Iowa team with Aaron White and Utah. And then we won, I believe, 3 out of 4 the next games. And then the following year, we had 20 wins. And then the year after that, they made the NCAA tournament. So I think what Cornhuskers fans have to realize is like one game can change the entirety of your program. If you get that big win, if you win some games down the stretch, but you got to stay competitive if you're Nebraska. And they've done that. They've been in games. But I think if you're a Cornhuskers fan, you can't judge the season by wins and losses. Talking to their coaching staff, they feel like they have good recruits coming in, so you just have to stay patient.
It's hard. I mean, they're 5-44 in conference play under Fred Hoiberg. I mean, it has been a slog, and this was a year, I think, that people expected them to be better, particularly with Bryce McGowan's coming in, and he's been really good, but just cannot finish games off. It's, again, similar in some ways to what we've seen from the Wildcats.